Right, welcome to Mattys Mental Health Podcast. We got Dave Hicks here today, the man, the myth, the legend, local comic, local a lot of things. How you doing, Dave?
Good. Nice to be here.
Good to have you here, man. What's going on today? How you doing?
Pretty good. Just enjoying the weather. I like the seasons that bookend the summer because I have a little extra weight on, so I suffer in the heat.
Oh yeah, get that
I
cool air.
love I love the cool seasons.
You got a skeleton behind you. Got Halloween theme behind you.
Yeah.
For anybody's watching video, can see that.
Yep. Yeah. I got a skeleton suit, but you can't try it on in the store, and you can't take them back when you wear them. So
It's too small or too big or
I can
what?
get my legs in, but it's a little tight around the groin area.
Oh,
So it just hangs there as a prop.
yeah, some good
I actually
sauce.
I do live streaming like a I have a loop station. I do loops on Twitch.
Oh, cool. We'll
Um,
definitely plug that.
so that's the background
Oh,
of
that's really cool. That's really cool.
yeah, yeah, the Guano show
Okay, we'll put that in the
at Twitch.
description. Everyone check that out.
Network.
Get some loops, some skeleton
Yeah.
loops.
Actually,
Um,
I'm starting to do some Halloween theme type songs, or not songs, they're loops. So yeah, I got one for vampire. The werewolf one's not that great, but I have a witch one that's so, a ghost one. So I just did an aliens one today, so I don't know. I'm trying to go through all the archetypes, all the stereotypes of these uh these Halloween creatures.
right.
Uh,
That's very cool, man.
but yeah, so
I want to say thanks so much for coming on and want to come on the show. Um,
thank you.
where did I know a little bit about your story, but where did mental health start for you?
Um, hmm. I'm not going to talk about kid stuff like when I was super young, but my first like psychotic break was uh like most young people, it was very early 20s. So it was like 2021, which was like I'm diagnosed bipolar schizoaffective disorder. Um, but at the like my first break, it was like I was full blown psychotic at the height of it in Toronto, and yeah, I was completely detached from reality, like completely. Like I have memories of that time, but I've been told I did things that I don't remember doing, and at I was actually um, it's sort of a um, I guess they call it like a God complex, but mine was like obsessed with being connected with God, and I felt like I had this mission to bring all the religions together and make the world a better place. And yeah, and yeah, it's hard, man. You can't One person can't do that. So uh, I I basically
It's a big job.
it's a big job, yeah. And there's a lot of atheists, and uh, what's weird is I didn't go into houses of worship. I actually went from street person to street person to street person to street person. Just kept going, and I was just like, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing today?" No, 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 no. And I would, um, and if they were hungry, um, I'd I'd give them food. I was cooking out of a hotel in Toronto on like Queen West called the Drake. It's still called the Drake. It's been called other things, but so I was cooking out of there, and I always had food on me because I knew I was bump into people, and I was feeding people out of the side of the restaurant. And yeah, I just went from, you know, like, what people would deem as bums or crazy old people, you know, especially in Parkdale in Toronto, it's per capita, it's like the highest number of people with mental illness per capita in probably the world, because the services that are there, it kind of it brings a lot of people who are trying to who need the services, and it's within walking distance, and there's all kinds of stuff that folks get connected with, like outreach centers and stuff. But yeah, that was my thing, man. I was just like I was 169 pounds. I'm 265, so I'm 6'1". I was just a bag of bones, literally, and didn't sleep for weeks and weeks. And you know, I've seen a lot of shit. I've been in and out of home, like places where a lot of these older psychotic people lived, and uh, it's pretty sad. Like a lot of situations, it's just cots, like a single cot, like an army cot in a room, and they're just living there, and they're eating out of fucking cans, and it's pretty depressing. But I actually thought they were reincarnations of apostles and of these spiritual leaders from the past. So for me, I had this humility towards them, like they were, like I could learn from them. And so I spent a lot of time with people, just listening with them and stuff. Younger people, like street kids and stuff, a lot of times I would take them into, if I was broke, I would take them into a store, and I would teach them how to steal food. Just be like, if you're hungry, man, just fucking take it. This is a big chain. They're making lots of money. This is how you do it. I showed them all the tricks, and then and I don't think they were really prepared for that kind of thing. So there was this dubious, like fucking, Robin Hood idea of like taking a little bit from the rich to give to someone who's hungry it seemed justified, you know what I mean? So anyway, that was the first episode. I ended up in the mental hospital. I was in there for a month, and then
That
out on
was that your first diagnosis, like first time?
yeah, my first break, yeah. My first episode, season 1. uh, but and I've been in and out of the hospital since, but I have strategies to manage my illness. And the less, like the more you live with it, the better you can manage it. Almost like if you survive through certain things, you learn you learn your own breaking point, and you learn when you need to reduce stressors. And I've always been compliant with medication. I don't preach that kind of thing, but like I think the mantra for people who want to offer support to someone is never to say, like if someone's like, I'm thinking of coming off my meds, never to say, yeah, that's a great idea, or yeah, don't. You should always say, if you come on to meds with a medical profession, you should work with a medical profession to come off of meds. You know, there's a lot of people, especially like um especially like people who have podcasts who will talk about a subject and just, you know, just kind of think that it's, you know, like you can hear Joe Rogan saying, oh, these medications really, you know, they can fuck you up and blah, 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 blah. But they never say if you get on medications with a medical profession, that's who you come off with. Like a lot of people around Brody Stevens, who was a comedian who killed himself, like probably like in my top five as far as who influencer. Like for me, I just loved his crowd work and his just his style. Um, you would hear people say to him, "Yeah, man, if you're not feeling funny on those pills, then you should come off them. Just stop taking them." But it has to be with the person who got you on them. You can't just end them on your own. Like I did that. I did that one time, and I had like blood clots coming out of my penis. I had ended up in a bit of trouble because I spun out, and you know, some medications, you know, if you don't taper them, you can really do a lot of damage to your body,
Yeah.
and you know, you can get into trouble.
Mhm.
So I think outside of having someone in your life that you trust that can say to you, "Hey, man, are you okay?" When you're either you're down, like I haven't seen much of you, or you're spun, you're paranoid. You need one person. If you don't have a friend or a family member, then you have to find someone, and you know that's where drop-in centers or places that do like vocational development, like a, you know, where you can go in and do artwork or something. You need someone in your life who's going to see you and let them know to check in with you, because that, like having making that connection can save you a lot of grief down the road. Like I've been fortunate. I've had my first episode. I had a friend who, like, I went to university with, like a year after being hospitalized, and then I ended up uh, kind of spinning out, and just like we had that talk, like, dude, are you okay? You seem really, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm, you know, I'm, yeah, I gotta, yeah, like just to, you know, to kind of have that one person. So that's so on and off meds. If you take them, I'm not preaching, but on and off with a doctor, have one person in your life that is um, that can check in with you, to ask you to, that they know the real you, like when you're well, to have them check in with you. And then um, the third thing, which is paramount to creating continuity in your life, is to have one one thing you have to do in the week. You have a week. So for example, I took singing lessons. So once a week I went to my teacher, and we, you know, and it was only half an hour, but I did it for 2 years. And so you have this something where you're, especially if you have depression, you're getting out of the house and you're getting to something that is a creative outlet. It can be work. It can be like at a cleaning and maintenance company I worked at, Fresh Start Cleaning and Maintenance in Toronto. The admin staff, all the workers there all have mental illness. It's a peer-run organization. The Ministry of Health pays for the admin, and then all of the money that's earned goes to the workers. And you know, they have like a lounge with computers and video games, Uh, they have like get-togethers, parties and stuff. It's all earned by the workers. So, um, but frick, what was I saying before that? I'm all balled up. I'm balled up. What was
You're
the
just
third thing?
saying like having
Oh,
one.
having one thing. Yeah, having one thing to go to. And the I worked with, we had 80 workers. I was a site supervisor. I did every job in that company, besides the executive director and the finance. I didn't work in finance or accounting, but I did scheduling. I did site supervisor. I sometimes I couldn't handle being in charge, so I went down to cleaner, you know. And anyway, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I've worked with people, and I've been in a situation where it's like I can only work a half day and just go day by day and just see how it goes. But there were folks there who did 4 hours a week, and that's all they did. But after 10 years, those guys, those folks are going to be able to say, I worked at Fresh Start for 10 years. Nobody's going to look at you and go, well, how many hours exactly did you work? You know what I mean? So same thing. So if it's not a job, then it has to be a creative outlet. If it's not music, I've taken um, pottery for a couple of years. I volunteered. You can volunteer. I used to volunteer at the Pollution Probe and a lot of NGOs, non-government organizations. So if you have that one thing, it gets you out of the house, because for most of us, that having social connections is just as important as medication or managing stresses, and you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So
of course.
those three things I would say are probably the most important things for me. That's how I deal with life. That's the main thing. And then the other thing is really, really be kind to yourself, and you know, uh, if you mess up for some reason, especially with personality disorders, like I've developed some of that, I think, in my latter years, where I just say what I think, and it can be caustic, but you know but it's not always coming from a mean place. It's just a lot of times I'll play the devil's advocate. I already know my side, and I'll just play the other side to see how people think. um, but more times than not, people with mental illness, because we don't present as like physically, we don't, it's not like when you get older and you get tardive dyskinesia, which I'm starting to get. You know what that is, right? When your body starts locking up and you have tongue movements, and basically when it's full blown, you end up looking like a Looney Tunes character that just got blown up. You're like Daffy Duck walking around doing involuntary movements. So you end up presenting like you have mental illness, but that's actually usually get that as a side effect from medication, not because you're mentally ill. So but fuck, sorry. Oh shit. Oh,
No, don't worry about it.
um,
Don't worry about it. That's
but
you're allowed to curse here. You were just saying.
okay. But
um
yeah, like um oh yeah, so people may see someone being assertive or advocating for themselves, and that you know that may get misconstrued as being a bitch or an asshole, or like, ugh, this person's horrible. But they're actually, if you see, because the analogy for a lot of us, I think, and I just thought of this analogy recently. Have you ever put a worm on a hook?
Yeah.
Right. So the worm goes on a hook, right? And people see the hook. They see, they don't recognize that I might be like, I'm a wide person, I'm solid, I've done a lot of physical labor. I'm threatening. Just I stand sideways to people just so they don't feel threatened. If I raise my voice and people get upset, they're like, whoa, 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 this big guy is blah, blah, blah. So they see the hook, they see the fish hook or the treble hook, but I'm the worm that's on that hook, that's been skewered by the fucking shit system that's just complete garbage, because they don't realize how how difficult it is for us to even ask for something when it comes to, resources. Their resources are safeguarded like they're these precious things, and through over time, it's hard. It's really hard. It's like if someone acts out and does something wrong or says something wrong, there needs to, like, as someone in who's a member of the mental health community, like who's a peer like yourself, and you have mental illness, right?
No, no.
You
I
don't?
just no. I just the reason why I started this podcast was I lost someone to suicide. I lost my girlfriend 5 years ago. So went through a lot of grief with that, and um, nothing diagnosed.
Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So anyway, um, try to see the mangled, uh, fucking, chewed up, spit out worm that's on the hook. And society, with their bureaucracies and with their really quick judgments, they're the that little piece that keeps the fish from coming off. They're the barb, and they don't realize it, but they're the barb. They're keeping us on the worm. They're keeping us tortured and suffering. Forgiveness and sincerity is dead. Everybody's completely uh completely self-serving, right? Very few people will do will do what I'm trying to do, which is work with other peers, with people with mental illness, and bring us all up together.
Yeah.
Right? When I started the stand-up comedy, I was going out. I was going out to regular open mics, like just sing-song open mics, and just asking if I could do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And so I did that, uh, you know, because like there's a guy in Vancouver who teaches stand up for mental health. And I wanted to get something going here. So approached him, and he's like, it's $7,000 and you got to fly me in and all this stuff. And I was like, okay. So I went to CMHA and any other group that might be able to come up with money. And the that experience was terrible. But yeah, so there's no money. So I just started doing it myself. And then I realized, you know what, if I got some folks together, we could do this. So we ended up, like the places that are supposed to offer help, I approached and they wouldn't give us space. And so we ended up in a hallway at the Guild upstairs. Just, there was no room for the seven of us. And we just practiced in the hallway. and we did a show after 3 months. We met 3 times a week and then did a show 3 months later. And Margie, as you know, she was one of the six. And I just listened to your podcast with her today, and yeah, it was really something to hear her voice again. She's just such a force of nature. Um,
God bless Margie. I think that was episode, I don't know, 7 or 8, and
yeah,
we became really good friends. She told me a little bit about the group you guys had, and I know Ryan was in it too, another mutual friend that goes to the open mics. Um, but yeah, she was a beautiful soul. She was so funny.
yeah, she's amazing. Um, and yeah, that was so anyway, Margie was the one person I was like, she has to do this with us. I had met her, and she was so attentive to my being in a space. We were in a group for Lions Club. Anyway, she just made me feel so welcome, and joked with me, and she did to me the thing that I do with people, which is joke with them and try to connect, like really connect on a level that isn't just, getting together and talking about problems, which is fine. Like, I'm not knocking groups, and I've used them, and I've used counseling. There's no replacement for that. That said, meeting, the reason to get together is to write jokes and do stand up, or do improv exercises and then have shows. Like, it's different. You end up talking about your problems, but it's not the reason you get together. And she had lost her daughter, Jennifer, um, about 6 months before we started the group. And it was it was on a very deep level, it was terrifying for me, because I wanted I wanted the group to work for her, but on a very deep level, I was so scared of messing up somehow and triggering her and all of that. But the reality is, she is who she is, and she brought to the group what I needed from a peer, from a person. Everybody in the group did that for me. You know, I don't I don't think I could have done comedy the way we did and the way we're doing, unless I had other people. Um, but it was and there were times each person had their turn, you know, at being like, I don't feel funny tonight, and she went through some lows where, she was really upset, especially like, um, like birthdays of her daughter, and uh,
Yeah, of
anniversary of her
course.
passing. And it's like, um, like, even I was like, oh man, I don't feel like going. We did it in the dead of winter too. So people showing up was like, I was like, oh man, this is, once you get there and you just start, and each person does their thing, and someone might write a new thing, or just, rework a joke and just be like, just like fucking, you're just laughing together, and, creating and living life in a healthy way. So, um, yeah, so I miss her, and I find, it's pretty messed up with Margie, because I got really ill, and I was trying to link back with the group, but I was having like severe paranoid delusions about people in the group. And I I basically like for me, if I'm paranoid around people, I don't go around them. I try not to be around them so that whatever it is can pass, because I was and I still do it. It's a thing that happens. I just get into a situation and something happens, or there's something that snaps in me, and I'm just like, I'm terrified of, like, sharing crazy ideas, like, um, I don't have uh, voices in my head, but I have like paranoid thoughts, like people are plotting against me, or I have these like exhausting, mm, these like loops in my head, unhealthy loops that just go around and round and round. And it's, yeah. And I regret that she had passed around that time when I wasn't well. And it's one of my biggest regrets.
It's tough, man. It's
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast. So,
for sure.
but she
You
was,
know,
yeah,
can't control how you're feeling at the time, and I think like I think what you gave to her was like unbelievable because like man, she thrived on. She always wanted to do comedy. Like she told me about it. We hung out a lot that last summer before she passed.
I heard you guys were hanging out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was really happy. I was really happy. Like we have a Facebook Messenger group
yeah,
for all the people who've been in doing stuff with us.
yeah,
And seeing, like Stacy was driving, would drive Ryan and Margie, and I was just like, I was so happy when I saw that happening in the group. And I was like, because for me, the highest form of peer to peer is someone else doing what I'm trying to do. Because
yeah,
then we have like, then it can start growing, like where, because over my lifetime, I've been mentored, and then having mentoring people, to a point where they can start doing where they can start, like whatever it is. But yeah, so you and Margie, you guys hung out a lot, right? Like,
yeah.
for,
We did the podcast. I just kind of like, um,
I just watched that today. It was quite something.
yeah, yeah. She's fun. She's so funny. I just first off, like as soon as we get into it, she starts talking about
She's
her
that it was really funny when she,
talking about her maxi pad back in the day, how long it was. That was like the first thing she gets into. Holy
yeah.
fuck, I was dying. Um,
Yeah.
we did the
Yeah, we had to
podcast that
pin them
kind of
onto
just
our panties.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a foot long. Oh my god, she's funny. I reached
Or
out to her
she,
after a show one time, and then just like, "Do you want to come on the podcast?" I seen like 'cause she did a CBC article, and then she's like, "Yeah," and then after that, like I was having a really rough summer too. Like it was probably one of the worst times of my life. I was really sick, like mentally and physically, and she just would message me like two times a week or three times a week. Like in the evening, she'd be like, "You doing anything this evening? I want to stop over for a tea," and then I would just go over and like talk shit and go sit on her couch for a while, and um, yeah, it was like good amount of the summer leading up until she eventually passed, but
yeah,
we became good friends. But she told me all about like the group, and she told me like she always wanted to do it, and how much does it mean to her to get up there, and she feels so great getting up there, and how much it meant to
yeah,
her to do it, and how much it's helped her. So
yeah, yeah. I, yeah, she's just the force, man. She's just so good. So fun.
Like, I wonder if anybody has, for anyone listening, like, I wonder if anybody has, like, tape of her performing. Like, she was just like, for the listeners, like, she was like 4'8", probably, like around 5 feet. I don't know. I don't think she was over 5 feet. And she was, they
Yeah.
used to call her the Tower of Pain. And she'd come out, and she was like this. She was a Newfoundlander. She was like 67 years old, and she'd just come out and start firing off about like wrestling cops and getting drunk when she was younger and all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
the last thing, like, just take over the room with so much energy and kill every time. They're just
Yeah.
so funny.
When we were at, there was, what's that place? Upstreet. It's like a craft beer place. And they had a thing called a joke off where people would go up and tell jokes, but
Yeah.
just like, like ones you can get from your uncle's, book from the washroom or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was just laying back and people were going up, going up, going up. And then she's like, I think I'll tell a joke. And she went up, and I don't know if you know the joke, but it's the one where the cops like the cop goes, pulls this lady over, and he's like, you have any guns in the car? And she's like, yep, I got this. Oh, you got a handgun? Okay. Anything else? Yeah, I got a rifle. Oh, okay. Anything else? Yeah, I got this machine gun. Oh, and the cop goes, with all these guns, what are you scared of? And the lady goes, not too fucking much. The way Margie would tell that, and
Yeah,
she fucking murdered.
yeah.
She murdered. Like anybody who even thought they might have a chance, just dropped their head and they're like fucking laughing their heads off. And she would
Yeah.
pull these out, like, or even she would just like, there's a lot of stuff that she used to do in group where you wouldn't really you wouldn't expect it, but she would just be in the moment in the story. Like I remember because she did, indulge in marijuana,
Yeah.
and she had a friend over, she said, and she goes, I was so high, I went to the bathroom and I came back to the living room. I forgot he was there.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that joke. It's so funny.
like, like,
Forgot I had company.
yeah. But the thing is, there's so many, there's so many jokes that she did or life experiences that she would do in practice, like that didn't make it, just like these things that I'm like, you should write that down. And
Yeah.
she would write things down, but she'd write them down at home. She would never do, like she would never write. I give out cards and pens and shit for people, and she would just like that was just another throwaway fucking just a funny, like,
Yeah. She was
she
full of
was
them.
unreal. She was unreal. She was so sweet, and um besides Brandley, she's the only one who, and like I have a podcast with Ryan, but besides Brandley, who's in the group, um she's the only one that would call and like check in with me and stuff. And it's like I I know it meant a lot for her son to see her perform. And I was there the night that they did, and it was just like just like the light and energy that was there when she knew her son was there. Like it was just, and she'd have a friend just come in and they'd be like buckled over. Like she was so funny, man. Like she would like, and she was good with the audience. She would always check in, like she could read the room, and she would just test how people are doing and try, and she would get them pumped up, like, how you doing? And I said, how you doing? Like
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
like such a just amazing, like and that she was she was a like a matriarch. She was older, you know, like she was and to be able to cut loose like that, and yeah. Uh, so I'm,
She's just one of a kind, man. Like to just think about
I'm,
doing that in your late 60s and like
oh, I
just
know.
starting it then and then being that good and yeah,
Yeah.
she's amazing.
And what's crazy is like, I tell the story like, oh, I knew she was funny, blah, blah, blah. But she was this, she was like, she would, like, I would, being around her, like when we first started, I would levitate. She would give me this, just knowing she was there. It was just felt so good. You know what I mean? Like she was a strong woman. She was very supportive on so many levels with people. And like, it wouldn't just be her and I who would have problems in group. There'd be someone else talking about it. And she would just get right into what's really important about what someone's going through,
Yeah.
you know? And hearing her speak at, there was a really big show at the PEI Brewing Company, and she murdered there, but she talked about her daughter, and she talked about suicide and talked about people, you know, like like talk to someone. If you feel this way, talk to somebody,
Mhm.
you know. And that's, another thing that I would recommend is, and I like suicide and stuff like that, that whole area was such a weak, it was a weak, um, it was one of my, I had less skills in dealing with that. I could deal with, 90% of people stuff, like, like kind of checking in and getting to, like having rapport, but also, having people talk through stuff and then maybe offering a suggestion. But when it came to suicide, I was locked up. I was just like fucking, oh, it's just such a heavy, 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 heavy thing. And especially at Fresh Start, there were a lot of people who committed suicide. Like people I know and love that, like you fucking work 3 4 years with them, 5 years, and then they do that, and you're like, it's such a, you just don't want to mess up as someone who you might have someone in your life who's showing signs, or they look like they're not, like they're kind of not, they're drowning in whatever's going on. And I took CMHA put on like mental health first aid, like a suicide first aid, like what to do. I actually have to renew, I have to do like, I took the course, I took 2 courses, and then I want to do a refresher course. They have another refresher course that I'm due to sign up for. But not being afraid to ask the question. You talk to someone and they're like, you let people talk, you're there, you listen, you're not judgmental, you just let them talk. And then if you're sensing like this is getting really serious, it's okay to ask, are you thinking about harming yourself? Are you thinking about, you know what I mean? And if
Yep.
that's the case and you don't know who to talk to, you just say, are you, like, if I go with you, are you comfortable if we get someone who can, maybe we can make a connection? Because we're so afraid of social norms and taboos, and like afraid that someone's going to be offended. Oh, like their reaction's going to be, the fuck, you think I'm suicidal, you know what I mean? And to not worry about asking, because sometimes, and most times, every time you're going to make a connection. And yeah, that's a huge piece that I learned, um I learned through the course. I think everybody should take it,
Yeah,
because you get the tools you need, and you get like a resource card for contact numbers for different services and stuff. And
I think
so,
yeah, that's definitely be a great thing for people to have. I think, like, to your point there, I think like that's almost like the best case scenario if someone says no, I'm not suicidal, like, and they're serious about
mhm,
it. That's best case scenario. So
yeah,
what's the harm in asking the question?
yeah, exactly.
You mentioned before, Dave, about strategies you have for yourself, and I know you kind of mentioned like the main things that you would do um, as far as meds and having something to do. Is there anything else like day to day? Like you mentioned stress. Like how do you manage stress, and how are you kind of aware where you're at when you've had too much?
Um, I mean, it depends. It depends on what's going on. Like with bipolar, you have like high energy, you have low energy. Um, for me, knowing like, okay, you know, I'm on medication, and sometimes it's not perfect. So uh having like there's two main contacts you should have as far as like medical professions. One is a counselor, or like a psychologist, or someone who can do, like, you can chat to about what's going on in your life. And then there's the psychiatrist, or it might be a GP, for some people who can't get a doctor. I know mine took off, like he was here, but he left. So you talk to your counselor about what's going on, like, in your life, like whatever. You be in a relationship, and your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever, is something's going on. You talk about life stuff with them, about that and what's stressing you out. But with your doctor, you talk about your psychiatrist, you talk about, like, I sleep a lot during these times. um, I go to bed okay, but I wake up groggy, or this. You talk about everything physical that's going on, um, like or like I sleep in till whatever, and all of the physical symptoms. Work with your psychiatrist through that. So if you think it's like, if your life is okay, but you're going through someone passing away, or there's something, you know what I mean? Like, if you need someone to talk through with stuff, or like, things from your past are coming up, they're bubbling up, and like, there's a lot of um like, trauma from when we're younger, that we're trying to work through, and it's really hard to do on your own. I mean, there's people try to do it. That said, it's, like, group work or counselor. But so knowing the difference is very helpful. So if you're in a crisis, are you in, like, this is like a medication crisis, or I need to feel safe, I need a safe place. Actually, either one you could talk to about that. But I find it's helpful to organize it that way. But as far as reducing stressors or dealing with stress, it depends what it is. Sometimes, you know, you might think something stressful, and you go do it, and it's not as bad as you thought. Like, once you, like, a family function, you're like, oh man, I'm just like, it's not that you don't want to be around people, it's just you don't want to be the way that you are, and bring that to a family dynamic. That said, if you're open and honest, which is probably another point that's good, which you know, like having self stigma, worrying about what people think, that's that's really something you got to work through. And that for me, getting into like a like a social network of people, like people who have mental illness, you get into like a drop-in or vocational something, you know, and through your counselor, that's how you'd work into something like that. Or you can if you hear about it or look up mental health services or call CMHA and get into a social group. But I find it's tough to push yourself, but a lot of times people don't realize with the depression part, someone might spend the entire day just flatlined, done, can't do anything, completely flatlined. And for me, for years, I lived like that, like flatlined, couldn't do anything. And then I would try to make up for it in, to go out and be social. So it's almost like I felt like it was safe enough for me to interact with people because I kind of, you kind of almost recover from the last time you went out. And then for the mania kicks in when you're out with friends and you're just like, and so they see someone who's really great and seems like they got lots of energy. Meanwhile, when you go home, you're done. You know what I mean? Like, so it depends. And if it's social anxiety is something where you like, maybe you need to buddy up with someone and be like, do you want to meet up at like in town here, it's the Fitzroy or like a mental health social group, clubhouse, I guess they call it. But and employers, if you're working, you have you you almost have to. You don't have to, but I find it's better to be open about my mental illness with an employer, because like if they're going to be like, ooh, we don't really want someone who's whatever, oopsie daisies and blah blah blah. But more times than not, the people you work with are going to know someone who's in their family who are going through the same thing, so they're going to be more sympathetic. They're, you know what I mean, like, so um but working on that stigma that society has, it's not as much as it used to be, although it's still pretty shitty. Like I know someone who went on a dating app, and I won't say who, but this person, whatever, messaged them, tried to make a connection, and then they found out that they worked for a mental health organization, and was like, I just didn't pursue it because why? Because you think that they're not going to understand, or they're not going to be interested if they find out you know what I mean? So that's a thing you kind of have to figure out. But I'll tell you something, in 2000 and like 2011, I think, I spoke at it was a conference on employment for people with mental illness. And I spoke about my experience at Fresh Start Cleaning and Maintenance and the other places that are peer support. And I said, show of hands, who here has mental illness? A few hands went up. All right. And then I said, who here would hire one of these people to babysit or, you know, house sit, or I named a few things, and some hands went up. Anyway, after that session was done, I stuck around with the pamphlets and just hung out. And this woman came up, and she worked uh, for the Ontario Disability Supports Program, which is basically it's a disability, like it's welfare, but it's its own thing. Where if you have a disability, you get a set amount, you get a little extra than regular welfare, and they have like a structure that's whatever, that you can work a certain amount, blah blah blah. Anyway, she came up to me. She works for ODSP, and she goes, you know, when you asked if anybody here had a mental illness, I didn't put my hand up because I was afraid of what people who I work with would think.
Mhm.
And she works for disability, Ontario Disability Program. So the stigma runs deep, right? Like this thing is, you know, it's like it's brutal. It's friggin' brutal. Like,
How many people there too were like her? And then, I think if you don't, even if you don't have a mental illness, like every human walking this earth has some level of like some level of trauma, some level of experiences that they're going through where they're pushing their feelings off, or everybody has things. There's no perfect life. It's like it's almost like mental illness is like it's like a it's put into a category of something that like only those people experience, where it's like in reality, like we all deal with mental health and it's on a spectrum, and like you could be a few things could happen and you could be at a very low point, like it's we're very fragile. Like it's I don't know. It's crazy.
yes, very crazy. It's pretty crazy. Um, well, supported alternative businesses, supportive employment is offers like a really good model for how regular workplaces should function. Like at Fresh Start, if you had if you were sick, you would just call in as long as you, I think they were saying a day before, or if you gave 4 hours notice for them to find someone to replace you, then it was just understood that that's a function of the job. Like you have that, where in a regular job you're like, oh, I can't come in because the devil's in my couch. Then they're like, uh yeah, I don't know if this is working out, you know what I mean? So so two things: we need more mental health peer organizations to be developed, alternative businesses that provide that, and employers uh, who are educated or who are willing to, to set up something like at Fresh Start. What would happen is if there was a site that we got, like a bank um, or like an office that we had to clean, then there would be two people hired for the one position. So it was always doubled up. And then inevitably you're going to have certain people who are like, hey, if you got any shifts, I'll pick them up, you know. And it was almost always like you could get people covering shifts. So it's just going about that. Like if, you know, or as an employee, if you're kind of like, you can only work half time, you know, that could be a kind of like a positive thing for some employers, and just be like, you know, if someone needs time off for some reason, I can come in on call. Like, I don't mind doing that. Or even, you know, and some employers will take half-time workers or quarter-time workers just to have that 1 day or 2 days that the other people can't come in. So don't sell yourself short if your limit, if you know your limit is, you know, X number of numbers a week of working, you know what I mean? Like, you you'd be surprised. There's a lot of, you know, and all it takes is someone uh who knows somebody who's going through stuff, and is like, you know, and they see you come in, and a lot of times they really want to offer support, you know. So um but yeah. um yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's there's a lot to it, but those four things I said, you got to have someone in your life who can check, who can, that you trust, who you can, are going to check in with you and be like, are you okay? You seem, are you all right? You know, on and off meds with the doctor, and have one thing a week minimum, one thing a week. And even if you only go to it every second week, at least it's in your schedule. And when you do make it, you should feel fucking, or you should feel really proud, you know, like, and yeah, yeah, because here's an example of someone who had uh, supported employment at Fresh Start, right? This woman, she would be booked in uh, like every day, every day. No, not every day. She'd be booked in, and she would get on the transit and then get off the first stop and then walk back home, like, for 6 months. Couldn't make a shift, but she was scheduled. Then she started uh making it one day a week. She'd make it in, and then worked her way up slowly, more and more and more. And now she works full time,
Wow.
and she has her own apartment. She has a, you know, a better relationship with her son. She has, which is brutal on a lot of parents who have mental illness with kids. It's freaking hard, but just hang in there. So it's like, that's the difference, right? That's the difference. It's kind of like, when I came down here, I was used to working at NISA, Northern Initiative for Social Action in Sudbury. It was, I think I just broke the chair. Oh. Time to go. Time to add another hour to my walks. um, but that's like there's a model that's used down here on the island. It's called a clubhouse model, and it's basically built around, they call it work order day. So you go in, and during the day you're doing something that's like a work. So you're answering phones, or you're working the canteen, or you're shredding paper, or you're doing data entry, or you're cleaning toilets, or you're doing something work. And I'll say this, the good things that, like the Fitzroys would be my example. The good things, the great things that they do, number one is housing, 10 out of 10. Employment supports, 10 out of 10. they have a van that picks people up from who are like outside of the area and brings them in for, I think, $2 or something. 10 out of 10. The people I've met who have a low level of stigma, self-stigma, it's really good. At least an 8. Like, it's really good. Like, people, like with our group, I had 14 in there were 14 of us in the improv. And when we had the show, everybody was there. And every one of them was comfortable that people knew they had a mental illness. So for that, I commend them. That said, the difference between a mental health peer like myself, someone with lived experience, is at NISA, if someone came and said, I would like to start a comedy group, is there a room we could use and a space that we could use? And I would hold their hand, take them to whoever can make that happen in the organization, and we would make it happen. Right? At the Fitzroy, they wouldn't. It's like they're afraid that they're going to lose their job for doing their job. Their resources, the room, the space, the like, all of that is so safeguarded, and it's like, we just want a place to to practice, and it's not a part of work order day. Whereas at Northern Initiative for Social Action, NISA, I'll give you an example of a program that comes from the ground up. It doesn't come top down, it comes from the ground up. So there was this guy, Alex, who used to be homeless, and he got his life together, and he was a member at NISA, and he wanted, first of all, this was started, the whole peer-to-peer thing was started by like a vocational nurse who was working on her PhD and understood the value of peer support. So you need an ally in the system to make it happen. But anyway, so she was the one that got it started, and it's completely run by everybody with mental illness, works there, is a member. So anyway, back to Alex. He was homeless, and once he got his life together, he wanted to do something for folks that were on the street because he was there. So he's like, it'd be cool if I could make some quilts, and then they're called red coats. They go out and give out food and stuff to people. And so because it was peer run, they're like, oh, okay, well, what do we need? You need a table and you need sewing machine. And then they did a call out for fabrics and bought some batten, and that became a program. It became a program from him, where, I tried to get a room a few times to do some stuff, and they're like, no, you need a staff person there, and you need this, and you can't do this in these hours. And it's like I'm a key holder. I've I've had passcodes, I've had keys, I've opened and closed places, all kinds of organizations. I've been in and out, and you can tell that to someone, and it's almost like you're invisible. They don't see you like that. They see you as someone we need to take care of, and we need to, like, your ideas and who you are. It's not gonna work in our system, our clubhouse model. So because I ran a computer recycling depot in Sudbury for 2 years, and I've told everybody that, and not once did any staff say, ooh, maybe we could do that here. Maybe people could volunteer to fix computers and learn how to fix computers. I had up to 20 volunteers a day in my at the recycling depot. And a lot of those guys knew how to fix computers, and there inevitably there'd be people coming in who wanted, like, some would come in just to buy the refurbished computers, but a lot of them wanted like their computer fixed. And so I'd be like, we don't fix computers here for the public. We just get donations and refurbish them. But if you want to fix, you can talk to this guy and work something out. And they would get cash jobs, right? So it just starts as someone has an idea for a thing. And then if instead of negating it, fucking say yes, let's try to make this happen. I went to CMHA. I talked to the head of the PEI division, and I asked, I said, if for our group we're trying to help people do, at the time I was like, I'll do any I was trying to be NISA, I was trying to do anything for anybody. So it was actually Margie who wanted to publish a book of poems. And I'm like, I have someone who wants to publish some poems. If I can get someone to donate a printer, can we run it through you guys? Because I can't give them a tax receipt. And the person said, no, we don't help groups like that. No. And then in the next sentence, this person goes, but if you know anybody with money, $1 million, we'll make it happen. And I was like, you're a soul crushing, alien. You're not even real. You're not even real. You know what I mean? Underneath your skin, you're a lizard person. You know what I mean? Like, if I was running a thing and a community member came to me personally and asked for something, I'm the guy, I'm the person who knows how to get that done. You don't hold my hand and set me up with the person. You don't make it happen. You don't say, oh, well, maybe you can use our photocopier. You know what I mean? And that same person, I put a package together to do stand-up, and it was in there it was 2 months, and I went in to just follow up. I'm like, so did you read through the package or anything? I didn't hear from you. And they're like, oh, I think that's on my desk. Yeah, I think that's so yeah. So so you have like cold blood running through your veins, and you're in charge of stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So that's the difference. When I talk about peer, it's completely different. Like, another example is at NISA, they run, it's called a warm line. So you're not necessarily in crisis. Like, a lot of people would use this warm line service over the weekend, where you're like during the week, you go to groups and you have stuff going on. You're busy with some things, but completely alone on the weekends, it's really hard for a lot of us. So you call in to the warm line and you're just talking. It's just a voice. And we run that. That's mental health, peers, we run that. And I actually talked to a woman who, when I first met her at NISA, she was, for lack of better word, she was a zombie. She was so out of it. And it took everything she had to come in. And she kept coming and kept coming. And I would joke with her and try to just like shake her up to kind of, to just like bust a little bit through the fog. And I just saw her just kept coming. And she ended up writing, she just finished the second book. She wrote 2 books, and she's a senior. She wrote 2 books about her life. And now she's working the warm line. And I'm like, what? And she's one of the people that had trouble on the weekend, that couldn't get through weekends sometimes. because of the isolation. And now she's working, helping other people. Like you see how peer-to-peer is, where it's not mainstream people who read in a textbook what they think is going to work. Oh, I've done my thesis on social organization of the whatever people with this statistics and blah blah blah. It's about being a friggin' human, having a heart, being empathetic, being like you know. And because I've been that person, I've been that zombie, I've been there, and I still and like I still have that. I have times where I'm like that, where I'm just like not not there. And it's like when you've been through it, you recognize it in others, and you instinctively know what to do. Another example would be this woman Barbara. She's dead now, but she used to come in, and I would talk to her at NISA, and I'd be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Blah, 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 blah. Just kind of building rapport and just enjoying, you know, like having a coffee with her or whatever. And then I you know, where everybody just, you know, like people come and go all the time, but she kept coming, and I was like, I really respect that, you know, like it I know she's, you know, going through some stuff. Anyway, I go, Barbara, what's going on? Like, what do you really want to do, or what do you want? And she's like, I want a man. And I was like, what? I'm like right away, no hesitation. She just knew exactly what she wanted. And I was like, makes total sense. Okay. She had hair on her face. She had her fingers were yellow from smoking, and she was a bit of a hot mess. And um, I'm like, okay, all right, here's what we'll do. So I showed her how. Well, I set up her account for Plenty of Fish. I showed her how to get in and out of her account, and then I talked to the other staff, the program coordinator, and then at one of the staff meetings about doing like a spa day for everybody, because it wouldn't. I just didn't want it to be like, okay, we're just gonna do Barb, right? And so, and now that's a regular thing. And spa day is this thing where like a couple of us would cut hair, and then we'd do masks and get our nails done, and, you know, have soft music and just be like spa day, like something. And it came from Barbara. And I'm telling you, when she got all like cleaned up, we cleaned her fingers and, you know, like just made her look like niced her up. We took a picture, put it on Plenty of Fish. And I think I did three tutorials, which took me like 15 minutes each to teach her how to use a computer. Never used a computer before in her life. But because she wanted to meet a man, she was motivated and got in and out. She would come to me the odd time and be like, I don't think my password's going in right. And I'd help her with that. But basically for weeks and weeks and weeks, she was doing it on her own, completely on her own. And then like every day I'd be like, oh, how's it going? She's like, you know, good, good, good. One day I go, like, how are you? What's going on? What's new? She goes, I met a man. And I was like, fuck yeah. I was so happy, you know? I'm like, what happened? She goes, we went for coffee. I'm like, how'd it go? Oh, he's really nice. No, 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 no. So, and then, so she had a coffee date, and then they became like, you know, special friends, right? And I was like, okay, so you think somebody at a work order day place where it's like all we can do is, you know, we offer you the option of shredding paper or doing data input, you know, like once you do those things once, you learn, you don't have to fucking, you know. And volunteering to clean a toilet, would you go somewhere and volunteer to clean a toilet, pay somebody to clean a toilet, and pay attention to people who who want to do something. You find out what they want, and then you just you clear the way. And I'm telling you, people just do it on their own. They'll do. There's a they call it the artist loft. So it's just a room with where they have people donating, or we buy canvases and paints. People go in there. There's no one going, like talking to you and stuff. It's just like you come and go. You use the facilities, you use the resources, and there's inevitably you end up with people who are real have really strong art skills, who use the room, and then people who have no experience using the room, and then you have this interaction, this energy, this synergy, and it just happens organically, right? And it's like you try to explain that to somebody, but all they see is the hook. They just see someone who's being aggressive, who's being, you know, not being assertive, but being pushy, being, asking for stuff. They don't see the worm. They don't see they don't see the damage that is inside of someone who just doesn't present as, you know, uh, like ill. You know what I mean? And it's so that if anything, I think peer support's like the future. And I believe peer support is something that it's a model that works for any kind of grouping. So peer support uh, for newcomers to Canada, or peer support for Indigenous people, or whatever, or people who, whatever it is, maybe cancer survivors, being there for someone, serving your people. Find who your people are and serve them. It's one thing to be like, yeah, I've done all this great stuff. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this. I can do that. Yeah, that's great. Great. Here's a pin. Here's a button. But people who if people who find you find who needs people who need help, or you find your people, it'll be good for you, and you're gonna like all boats go up when it's raining hard or something. So so anyway, like, yeah. Oh shoot, audio dropout. I can't hear you.
Hello, hello.
Oh, I hear you now.
It's my bad.
That's okay.
You're right, man. You're right, and that, like, I love what you're saying, and like, it just makes so much sense. Like, it's a community. You're building a community of people where it's like you're giving people purpose. Like, what do you want to do? What do you have in your heart that you want to do? And it's like, I want to write poems. I want to get it published. I want to refurbish computers. It's like giving them the space, or even just I need a room to practice comedy. It's like giving them space, giving them life, and then everyone participates and supports, and then it turns into a thing, and then they're giving back to the community, and then like going from someone who can't even make it to work, like you said, to 6 months later they have a full-time job and they have their own apartments. Like, it just makes so much sense. And like, I think at the core of that, it goes to like community, which is like it's a basic human need that gets lost in today's society. But like, especially for someone that people that need it, right? Like those groups you mentioned, but we all need it. But to have that and to feel supported, and then like you go from like, like the spectrum, whether that's like the bottom where you're the one that's needs help the most, and then all of a sudden when you're farther down the line, then you become that person that's helping the person that needs the most, right? That makes so much sense. Like, and just what you said, like what are you really going to learn? Like, it's good to have skills to be like, okay, I can shred paper, I can make some food or whatever. um but those are just mundane things that you're gonna do a few times and then that's it. That's not really like finding yourself again. That's like, okay, I can do the basics now. But to have someone over that runs it, where it's just like, this is what you should do, opposed to being like, what do you want to do? I think that's beautiful, man. It's a great message um, that you're saying, and I think there needs to be a lot more of it.
It's not easy, man. It's not easy. I tried so many places to do the stand up and the improv, and you have to find allies. This is the only way, and they might not be in the community. Like, CMHA and the Fitzroy really let me down. And I hate, talking trash, but that's the reality. Even this summer, you know, I know COVID's, made things difficult, but we were practicing improv or in the park, you know what I mean? And it's like, if you're in a community or in a group and you have some kind of, power or influence, try using it to advocate for others. Advocating for people doesn't stop at doing it once. You just got to keep doing it and doing it. And luckily I'm built a certain way where okay, like there was a church. But I tried a bunch of churches. This one church was ridiculous. I was like, yeah, I just want to do whatever, do some improv. And they're like, you need insurance. So I found an organization that would cover the insurance for us. And it was for $1 million. And they're like, the board said no, because you need $2 million of insurance. And I was like, well, I'm going to tell Jesus about this. And you guys are going to be in real trouble. You're going to be real trouble. So anyway, I joke, but that's the kind of bureaucratic, hoarding of resources, hoarding, like just everybody is so terrified of losing their job for doing their job. And I really, really, really hope, you know, people learn that, yeah, just fucking, if you think you should do this for someone, just do it. And don't worry about the consequences, because, if you need a credit check, a background check, like all that stuff's doable. There's, work history, references, like, just, if you have to ask for that, that's fine. We can, people who are trying to do stuff, like, we'll come up with it, like, but it's, yeah, it's, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like in the old days, people weren't so worried, but all it takes is like, it's like bylaws. Like someone complains that the kids are, too loud somewhere, playing somewhere, and then they have to, make a bylaw. Eventually everybody's just locked into all this, and you're like, where'd this bylaw come from? Or, so it's like, you just need to, um, here's a real mental health example. When I was volunteering I was coming in for NISA. I volunteered there first, which is a great way to get into employment, is volunteer at a place that you want to work. You volunteer, like if it's a nonprofit or something, just say, yeah, can I come in and help out? You'll learn, you'll meet people, and then if something comes up, you can get a job. Anyway, I filled out a form to cover my expenses for driving in, and I put it in with my doctor, and 3 months go by, and I'm like, I went to talk to her, and I talked to the receptionist. She's like, let me put it in with this other doctor. 2 days later, it was signed and I was done. So what's the difference between one doctor who probably saw that, but just didn't realize, like, do I have the authority to do this? Or maybe didn't even think it was a big deal. And another doctor going, yep, that's good, because it keeps people moving. It gets things going. You know, like if something screws up and it comes back on you, you know, say sorry. I'm sorry. You know, I gave them money. I didn't know they were cheating or something. Like the odds of someone cheating is always lower than, like, minuscule compared to people who are genuine. So, but that's it's and it's just people who, you know, I don't know. Just don't be a lizard, man. That's what I say.
Don't be
You
a
know,
lizard.
don't be a lizard, or get a sun
Be a
lamp when
lizard.
you're at work.
Yeah,
Warm up a little bit.
get a red lamp. Thanks so much for coming on, man, and sharing all
Yeah,
this. I
likewise.
really appreciate it, and you
Likewise.
said a lot of good things, a lot of enlightening things about the mental health care system, and you know, the peer support system, which I just, you know, I'm so in favor of everything you're saying. It makes so much sense.
Yeah. All right, Matty, I appreciate it. Thanks for
Where
doing that podcast with Margie. Love you,
uh,
Margie.
yeah.
And you know, I'll tell you this. My dog, we had to put our dog down, um, like, after Margie passed, and it was in the wintertime, and I was so upset. I was just thinking of her, and because I had to put my dog Chunk down, and I was like, ah, freak. So I'm like really upset, and I'm like, I gotta go do something. So there was a roof. I had to snow blow all the snow off, and it was freezing, and I'm pushing the snow blower, and I'm just crying on the roof. I'm like, ah, look, Mikey, Chuck, I fucking miss you guys. And talking to the crows, like there was one crow that was like standing on the tree, and I'm like, is that Chunk? Are you Marty? I'm thinking, like, you know, like maybe the bird is Margie's visiting me, and then or Chunk. And but I had a dream. I had a crazy dream, and it was Chunk had, my dog was a Rottweiler, big Rottweiler. I had a dream she had wings, and Margie was flying on Chunk and flew by, and was just like smiling, just like flying by, like, hey, and I'm like, I was like, oh, fucking, like, it was just like this strange thing that, where it was like, oh, okay, that maybe they're just trying to say, like, don't worry, we're okay, you know, like the spirit's okay. So anyway,
Probably was.
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Where can people find you? Where can people find you online? As far as your stream and
Uh,
things you're doing with your improv.
well, out of our minds network on Facebook, or Network, OOOM network, and yeah, that's the comedy group. So the videos and stuff we're starting to put up, and then my personal, like on YouTube and on Twitch, it's Guano Show. So like Guano Show, one word.
Guano
I haven't
guano show
streamed it.
show. It's like a
Yeah,
song.
there you go.
Guano guano show guano show.
Guano, that's it. Hey, you got it. But there, I just yeah, I just I just hack around. It's really just, I kind of, during COVID, I took a deep dive on live streaming. So
Very
it
cool.
was really to test stuff, and as a musical outlet. But I'm more focused right now on doing video production with the group. So our hope is that out of our minds network, Network, we do a bunch of videos, like just quick and dirty, fun stuff, like nothing too high res or whatever, or
High production.
or primo. But down the road, I'm hoping to do like a series, some kind of mini series, or like a web series where I have a few. We have a few ideas. We have a few ideas for something, but I have to, again, I got to find a space where people are going to let us do it. And, you know, Film PEI is willing to allow us to use equipment. So it's just a matter of, you know, lining it up, writing some stuff. But it would probably look something like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where you would have plot points, and then there would be wiggle room for people to just be like, do an improv. So it would be completely improv between plot points, and then just chop together. Nothing too how do you put it? Like, it's not going to be Stanley Kubrick or anything like that, but just to have fun and to give ourselves, you know, an outlet, something to do that's healthy.